Cisco Multicloud Defense, Gateway Deployment and Enforcement of Policy with AWS. Let's get started. All right, in this exercise, we'll deploy a security VPC with ingress and egress gateways. This architecture is based on all best practices listed by the cloud provider. So I have ingress gateway, which is pod 33-ingress-gateway-AWS. This inspects ingress traffic from the internet to the web servers. This architecture uses AWS network load balancers as a front end. The users on the internet uses AWS network load balancer endpoint, FQDN, to access the application. Then we got egress gateway, pod 33-egress-GW-AWS. This inspects east-west traffic from pod 33 app 1 to pod 33 app 2. And it also inspects egress traffic from pod 33 app 1 AWS and pod app 2 AWS to the internet. In this architecture, we use AWS Gateway Load Balancer, Gateway Load Balancer Endpoint, and Geneva Protocol. Now, this is the centralized VPC model, and you're going to see how easy it is that all of this is taken care of with Cisco Multicloud Defense. All right, we're in the interface here. We'll go to setup, and now we're going to secure our account. Now you see centralized and distributed models. As I mentioned, we're going to focus on centralized in this series, but you certainly could do a distributed model if you choose to do so. All right, let's go ahead and give it a name. Pod-33 SVPC-AWS is going to be the name. And this is the VPC setup. The account is AWS. The region is East 1. And we need a CIDR block here. So let's go ahead and add that. And let's go ahead and pick our availability zones. We only have one in this instance. Obviously, you would have two at least. And transit gateway, we're going to create new. And the transit gateway name is pod 33 SVPC-AWS-TGY. And we'll auto accept shared attachments. Now this will act as the centralized security point to protect all your VPCs. Hit next, it's created, we're done. Okay, so let's go ahead now and add the gateway. Again, let's select the account, AWS, and now we're going to select our VPC. And you can see active pending. So we got to give it enough time for it to be fully initialized. Doesn't take that long. And there it is. Instance type, we're going to leave the default. For the gateways, it's going to be ingress, east, west, and egress. For the ingress gateway name, we're going to go ahead and change the name here to pod 33-ingress gateway AWS. And here, if your gateway wasn't selected, mine is in this case, we can certainly come in here and search for it, or we could type it in. Pod 33 ingress policy. Let's go ahead and add east-west egress gateway. And let's change the name here. And for whatever reason, I forgot to append the -egress-policy here. Again, it's just good for reference. And here we could leave the default, which is correct. Or we could search for it. The IAM role name is Cisco MCD-gateway-role. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our pod 33 key pair that we have created. So let's go ahead and hit next. Bam. That's it. The gateway is now being deployed in our environment. I mean, the centralized VPC, all of the tenants within that environment are being created. So let's go to gateways. And you can see they're enabling. We'll refresh a couple times. It should say active pending, and then we can go ahead and secure the environment. So let's go ahead and refresh here a couple times. You can see the cloud details, interfaces, instances, settings, the parameters around the gateway. You can edit here as well. We don't need to do any of that. We'll go ahead and hit refresh, and we see active pending. Okay, great. So things are provisioned. Let's go ahead and go to Cloud Accounts Inventory. And we can obviously search here based on all kinds of different attributes. But the goal here is to go into the correct VPC. So let's go ahead and select region equal to, and maybe we'll grab the US-East-1 region of AWS. And we'll go to VPCs. And you can see this is a lab environment. There's quite a few, but the two top ones are ours that we just deployed. Now we can go ahead and search for region in here as well if we wanted to. So you can see it's already being parsed by US East 1. Ours is at the top, but that's fine. So let's go ahead and secure now. Let's see how difficult this is. Secure, select the VPC. And this is for pod 33-app1-VPC. We're going to change the route, the default route for pod 33 app 1 to point to the gateways, the transit gateway that we created. Do you want to continue? Yes, we do. Close this out. And it's in action. That's it. It's using the policy that we built earlier. These gateways now are inspecting traffic as they traverse it. Now let's go ahead and do pod 33. Again, we'll change that route table to point to the transit gateway. We'll go ahead and hit save. Do we want to make the changes? Yes, we do. Close this out. Bam. Policies enforced. But don't take my word for it. Let's get into some testing and validate that the policy is actually working.